About time we start. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today, speaking about the importance of business context for building effective agents or agentic systems in your organization. I'm Gabriel. I look after the digital team inside First Technology, and we're a specialist team building solutions on technologies that include Azure, Azure AI, AWS, and Bedrock, with specific specializations in tools such as Microsoft Fabric, Microsoft Modern Work Stack, and Microsoft Foundry. Built some really innovative solutions in the last couple of years for many industries, including healthcare and life sciences. That one specifically making us a global finalist for our work in AI as a Microsoft Global Partner. Today's session will be recorded and transcribed, and it will also be shared with you after the session. And that will also be made available on our YouTube channel. So please feel free to refer a colleague to it who might have missed today's session. Everybody will be muted on this call due to the number of attendees. So we ask you that you post any questions to the Q&A window in your Teams client. We'll try and cover questions as we go along by interrupting our speakers, or we'll cover them in a dedicated Q&A section at the end of today's session. 2026 started with a bang, with frontier models being released by OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google, and it seems like the pace is just accelerating and it's relentless. The tools, and we use these models to build tools, generative AI tools and agentic systems inside our organizations. However, today we want to focus on a specific growing shortcoming of business AI and agents, something that we've been discussing in our own team since last year. And we want to cover specifically 3 products released, made available by Microsoft, released that in Inspire in November last year, that addresses this gap between these very, very clever models and the context of our business, especially that kind of context that's not written down. Before we do that, just very briefly, First Digital, like I said, is a specialist team inside the First Technology group. We typically build solutions from the ground up, either using code, low code, or data type solutions. And I'm quite honored today to have some valuable members of our team to discuss these 3 products. Chris Botha is our technical manager in our modern work practice. We've got Greg Fibiger, also a technical lead in our data and analytics team. And then finally, Nathan Koosen, who looks after our Gen AI development team. Right, so before I hand over to our first speaker, this is a study that was done by the Remote Labor Index towards the end of last year. And essentially, they set out to go and test the effectiveness of agentic systems inside organizations. So they gave about 240 real life tasks to agents, had them run these tasks, and then evaluate the output and the success of these agents. And the statistics was actually quite shocking. If I just flick here to the next slide, they tested all of the frontier models and their agentic capability. The projects that was given to these agents span typical freelance type projects or siloed type projects in your organization. For instance, data type projects, design work, coding work, and also marketing and the creation of marketing collateral work. The tasks were deliberately designed to be long-running tasks, because we know in a business context, long horizon tasks typically reflects the typical motion and velocity in organization, rather than a quick task where immediate output is expected. So on average, these agents ran for about 29 hours over these 204 real freelance projects. And here's the shocking outcome. On average, across these frontier models, just over 4% of projects was actually completed successfully after human evaluation at the end of the task. Interestingly, this benchmark, there's a similar benchmark by OpenAI called GDP-Val. Now, GDP-Val also scored all of the frontier models towards the end of last year, and it passed 100% of tasks. So why this discrepancy between these two think tanks? The one very obvious difference was that GDP-Val is a valid benchmark, and it's a real test that was executed, supplied the agent with a very clear contextual brief. It also supplied the agent with evaluations about how to test its own outcome, and it also had the expected outcomes that the human evaluator was going to apply to the task post-completion. And clearly, this benchmark and the agents that participated in the GDP-Val test scored way better, 100% of tasks completed successfully compared to the research done by this organization. And the big difference is the context that was supplied to the agent. So today's conversation is all about the importance of business context and the tooling that Microsoft has made available to help organizations like yourself build effective agents. And this is the analogy, really, if to simplify it. Frontier models might have reached PhD graduate capability, but like a PhD graduate that walks into your business, you will have absolutely zero context of what makes your organization unique, and what drives decisions in your organization that's typically not written down inside a standard operating procedure or a policy. And I thought before we move on to our first speaker, I want to show you guys a very quick example of how we've applied this in our own organization. So for the purposes of today's demonstration, we've built two little agents. These are just M365 agents. And both agents have got a very similar instruction. Take a requirement from a client and match it to the capability of the First Technology digital team and give me a verdict, if this is a good opportunity to pursue or not. So I'm going to take a sample email and I'm going to paste this into my first agent. It's a bit poorly formatted, but you can see that a guy called Rian mailed me from a Gmail account. He explains who he is. He's the procurement advisor for Tender Bridge Consulting. And he's got a client that's looking for Dynamics ERP work and some WordPress customization, and the customer is Durban-based. Okay, so I'm going to give this to my agent to do an analysis on this requirements and give me a verdict about the potential risks and the potential benefits of engaging with this opportunity and what the next step should be. So let me fire off that to the agent. Now, this specific agent has got no business context other than having access to the value proposition of First Technology Digital. And we've provided that through some of our value proposition summary documents and also our website. So the agent will consult both of those knowledge sources in order to make a judgment call on the requirements from this client. And you can see that here's the verdict. So 3 out of 5. So there's a partial match to the client's needs and the capability of First Digital. The summary of the agent is that there's a strong fit for First Digital because there's a website build required. However, it does highlight the fact that we are not Dynamics 365 F&O experts, and therefore that's something that would need a little bit further clarification. So it suggested 3 major next steps, what I need to do. So I'm going to now take this same email and I'm going to give it to another agent that we've built. Now, the difference between the previous agent and this agent is that this business context aware agent has been given a set of rules and business context that we extracted from historic emails and historic documents. So we deliberately went to go and find the conversations in people's emails, documents that was created, Teams conversation to supplement the context that we want the agent to use when it applies its scrutinizing logic to this client's requirements. Now, what makes this business context interesting is that, for instance, we might not blatantly exclude, for instance, the engagement of WordPress type projects or Dynamics ERP projects because we've got different divisions in the FISTEC group that can actually service those requirements. So never in our formal documentation do we speak about the fact that we don't engage in those type of technologies. But however, those decisions has been made on the inside of the organization through Teams conversations between managers or emails where we've decided historically to redirect inquiries for WordPress, for instance, to a sister company in the group. And this AI agent is aware of that context. That context has been extracted and it's been supplied as part of the decision logic of this agent. So I'm going to paste the exact same email in here again, and let's run this again. The agent has also been set up to provide exactly the same output so that we can compare apples to apples. So here you can see that this agent deems this client's requirement is not a great fit for First Digital. Now, there's a few nuances that is within our business context that this agent picked up on. The first one is that this client has mailed us from a public Gmail account. Now, typically, our clients would mail us from their corporate email addresses, so we immediately tend to be a little bit suspect if we get fairly complicated requirements from a public email service such as Gmail or Hotmail. Okay, it's also quite clear that this individual isn't the client. This is an intermediary. He's speaking on behalf of a client of which we don't know anything about the client, which is another red flag that we typically pick up when we scrutinize our opportunities. And again, nowhere in any of our formal documentation would we indicate that we apply that kind of scrutiny, but definitely within the culture and the approach and how we vet our clients, that is typically something that we look for and probably be a bit more cautious if we're aware that we're dealing through some sort of intermediate. It's also rightfully picked up with the technology mismatch, which in this case is WordPress and Dynamics. However, it's made a clear recommendation that, for instance, for WordPress, we have got a sister organization or sister division inside the group called First Impact, and they are indeed WordPress experts. And we have got a very solid, long-standing teaming arrangement with an organization called DAX Systems that we typically refer or introduce into our Dynamics F&A opportunities. So the point is, same client requirements, same input into the agentic system, output very different due to the fact that the one agent has been given access to business context where the original agent hasn't. Great. So before I hand over to Chris, this is the first webinar. It's really just an overview of Work IQ, Agent 365, which are two new components released by Microsoft, and then also Fabric IQ and Foundry IQ, which will be covered by Greg and Nathan a little bit later on in today's session. It's not a deep dive. It's really just an overview of why these products exist and what is the core value proposition around them. This webinar will then be followed up by 3 deep dive sessions. On the 9th of April, we'll do a deep dive and a practical deep dive into Work IQ and Agent 365 with Chris Buerta. On the 16th, we will take a deep dive into Fabric IQ and how semantic enrichment of data is absolutely key to building agentic systems over structured data. And then on the 23rd of April, we will explore the wonders of Foundry IQ and how and we'll look at the various components of that, including AI-assisted contextual knowledge retrieval, where you basically use AI to score the knowledge prior to be passed to the actual agent, the AI agent, for consumption. Great. So I guess without further ado, Chris, over to you.
Super. Thanks for that, Gabriel. Just a quick thumbs up that you can see my screen and the audio and video is clear.
Chris, coming through fine on this side.
Excellent. Right, super. Well, welcome everyone and thanks for joining the session. My name is Chris Buerta, heading up the digital workplace at First Digital, your specialized partner for Copilot, SharePoint, Power Platform, Teams, and Viva services. Over the next few minutes, we're going to look at how Microsoft is quietly shifting us from asking AI for help to having AI actually doing some heavy lifting for us. We'll quickly unpack what agents in Microsoft 365 are, how to manage them, how Work IQ makes them smarter, and what this means in practical terms for how work gets done going forward. If you've ever felt like your day is just a constant cycle of emails, meetings, and trying to remember what you were supposed to do in between, you're exactly the audience for this. If you're constantly on the road or in the air and wrestling email and calendar and Teams applications on mobile, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Okay. So let me quickly orientate you on how Microsoft is positioning agents within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. At the top, we have what's the new concept called Microsoft Agent 365, which you can think of as the overarching layer, the watchdog, coordinating intelligent behavior across the platform. Underneath that, there are two primary execution paths. On the left, we have Copilot for M365 agents. These are embedded within the M365 experience, evolving from Copilot chat into more action-orientated assistants that work directly across the Office 365 ecosystem. It's just important to note that in order to build custom M365 agents or even to use the new Work IQ Model Context Protocol Services, or MCP, users will need the Copilot for M365 license. So unfortunately, this functionality is not accessible on Copilot Chat, a free layer. And then on the right, we have Copilot Studio agents. This is where we build custom enterprise-grade agents tailored to specific business processes with deeper integration into automation capabilities. And then you might be thinking, okay, so where does Work IQ fit in? This is the new intelligence layer that's coming soon to our M365 agents and Copilot Studio agents. It is still currently in preview, general availability for later this year, but you can think of this as the intelligence layer that acts across all of these agents, providing the context, the signals, and understanding of how work is actually happening in the organization. All right, so Agent 365 adds a management and let's call it a center of excellence layer to your AI landscape, where you can get a complete view of all of your agents, including those pre-built agents, the self-built agents, the custom-developed agents, and even those shadow agents that's been switched on inside your organization. Enforce least privilege access by only giving agents access to the apps and resources they need to complete tasks. Treat agents like humans. Set policies for who can create, who can onboard, who can manage agents. Assign custodians for continuous supervision of these agents, and ensure agents start securely with a standard set of policy templates and governance guardrails. And then, of course, also to gain visibility into AI-related exposure risks and dynamically block agent interactions with sensitive data based on things like security labels and policies in your tenant. Next, let me just quickly explain the difference between Copilot Chat, the bundled version included with all Office 365 licenses, and the premium add-on version of Copilot for M365. So the premium one is integrated with your data. It knows about your emails. It knows about your manager. It knows about your calendar, your documents, your Teams conversations, chats, and channels. Here you can reason over that data while it already has context, and you can obviously also create and share custom agents with your team leads or specific individuals in your department. That could be anything from performing tasks, scheduling meetings for individuals, drafting messages, and generating reports that you can also then share with other users with a Copilot for M365 license. And now with Work IQ, you can further enhance these agents to do some of this heavy lifting for you. Chat, the free version, is the general and basic usage AI layer available inside Office 365. A much safer alternative than external and free services like GPT or Gemini as an example, but also naturally limited in its functionality. It doesn't have context. It doesn't know about your emails, your calendars, your documents. You have to feed it all of this information in order to reason and interpret the outputs. Right, and then we have Copilot Studio. For those wanting to expand and extend agents, perhaps a host of internal and external knowledge sources with custom grounding rules and instructions, all while having the flexibility to control the behavior, the model of choice, like an OpenAI model or an Anthropic model, and the audience for these agents. Look no further than Copilot Studio. Here we can build AI agents that handle conversations, automate workflows, and execute tasks across the entire 365 ecosystem. Publish agents to groups of users, the entire department, or even organization-wide without that additional per-user license requirement. Extend these agents further by using custom connectors, APIs to external and internal endpoints, custom plugins, and integration with the Power Platform suite, Dataverse, and external services. Through creating these custom agents, you can also control their behavior, who can engage with these agents, and apply governance through role-based access, environment policies, and even enterprise compliance controls such as Purview. And of course, extend these agents with WorkIQ intelligence. All right, so what exactly is WorkIQ? It's currently in preview, but it's Microsoft's intelligence layer that understands how work happens across your tenant and then maps the relationships between people, meetings and documents, as well as conversations and tasks. These all act now as activity signals and can include things like your entire organization structure and reporting lines just from what it can see in Microsoft Entra, including those reporting lines as underlying emails, meetings, Teams chats, documents, tasks, and general collaboration in Teams channels, all while honoring the permissions applied to this content and context. So think of WorkIQ as the intelligence layer behind all of these custom agents to further extend and automate workflow. So, coming soon to a single pane of glass near you, right inside Microsoft Teams, a tangible and intelligent AI layer that you can lean on to provide you with value-added insights in your day-to-day flow of work. Find specific emails, summarize unread emails, find a gap in my calendar and send out a meeting invite, or help me prepare for that next meeting. Find chats mentioning specific people or specific discussions like project health or concerns discussed within all or across all of my projects. Navigate documents like a champ. Find me this document, who last modified those files, summarize this set of files for me for a presentation, or create me a new document using the existing samples and templates that I have made available. Or simply assist me in managing my own time and calendar more effectively. Summarize that meeting that I couldn't attend yesterday. That Teams meeting that ran that has a transcript and a recording, summarize it in quick action points and highlight anything that I need to action or follow through. And through automation, let it even provision a follow-up session for me with the individuals, or even create those tasks right inside tasks or to do in Microsoft Outlook. Or simply, I'm on the road, I don't have time to jump through all of these applications on my mobile device. How does my week look like next week? Summarize it for me in a brief style so that I know where I have gaps, where I need to be preparing for activities, and what sort of activities and tasks in between I still need to address. Exciting stuff, eh? So just before I close off my segment, I just wanted to leave you guys with these two real-world use cases that's needed effectively in every organization. On the left, you would have like an executive calendar management agent. What this is doing is using WorkIQ signals like relationship priority, project urgency, overall meeting importance to continuously assess the executive's calendar. Based on that, it can automatically reschedule meetings, automatically accept meetings where there is already a gap in their calendar at that date and time, prioritize the ones that really matter, and even decline lower value sessions, essentially making sure leadership time is aligned on what is most critical in the business. And on the right is a Teams conversation analysis agent for project health. Here, WorkIQ is scanning discussions across projects to pick up on patterns, things like repeated issues, sentiment trends, or emerging blockers. The agent can then turn those into something actionable by generating reports, highlighting risks, broadcasting updates, or even creating and assigning tasks to individuals to get this back on track, and even suggesting where intervention might be needed before issues further escalate. Okay, so join us for the Work IQ Deep Dive webinar for even more information around this and some live demonstrations for those that are interested. I thank you for your time, and I trust it was insightful and a quick view into Copilot and the future of work intelligence within the Microsoft stack. And with that, back to Gabriel. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. That was really insightful and pretty much covers the IQ answer to the modern work side of our estate. So without further ado, I want to introduce Greg, looks after our data and analytics business, technical Al-Guru, who's going to cover the basics of Fabric IQ with you guys today and the importance of this semantic enrichment for when dealing with structured data in an agentic system. Greg, over to you.
Thank you, Gabriel. I'll share my screen. I'm Greg Fibiger, Head of Data and Analytics at First Digital. So Fabric and I are close together, and we're pretty excited about this. Okay, so I've got 10-15 minutes to explain Fabric IQ for you. We're having a seminar, we're having a deep dive on the 16th of April, in which we will technically show you what it's like. So that's the how we do it in Fabric IQ. Now it's what Fabric IQ is all about. So I just want to drop that camera. Right. I don't have many slide decks for you, but I want to take you from the known to the unknown. Right. So if we look at Fabric now, and you guys, many of you know Fabric, intensely, this is what it looks like. We've got the 5 areas that we work in Fabric: the factory, the analytics, database, real-time intelligence, and Power BI. Now, what they've done now is they've added the 6th stream, which is IQ. Okay, and it's very exciting. And within the next few minutes, I'll quickly explain it to you by using my very popular little diagram. And you can immediately see that I've placed Fabric IQ right there, which is very important, because they've moved now from a unified data platform into a unified intelligence platform. And it's very important to understand that concept in terms of AI, in terms of structured, semi-structured, and unstructured data. Right, and in order to explain it, and I always try to demystify it, because technically I can go wild and I can just give you all these big words like ontology, taxonomy, polymorphism, but that means nothing if you don't understand. If you had to go to a client, or if you, the client, what is this all about? And I use this quick analogy. Now, the first one I'll use is an acronym. Now think of this word ontology, taxonomy, vocabulary of a business. So when I go to a meeting, and I'll never forget at Microsoft, I'd go to a meeting and they would say MDS, and then immediately in my mind I think, like you're all thinking, what is MDS that Greg's referring to? So I would say it's Master Data Services. However, there's like 17 different versions of this acronym. Now, for me to understand what version we're talking about, I need to understand, but what is this acronym? Is it Master Data Services? Is it Market Data Services? Is it Managed Document Services, which is a popular one? And that is a huge problem. Fabric IQ allows us to define the vocabulary that we understand, that if we talk, or if AI uses the Fabric IQ, that MDS is my MDS. That, I would sit at these meetings and I'm totally lost because they're using these acronyms, MDS, TQS, and I don't have a clue. So Fabric IQ allows us to define that ontology so that AI understands that. The second one I want to talk about. Now think of data, ambiguity. So when I say now it's a rainy day, then I've got Nick Smith on the call and he's like, oh, Greg, it's a rainy day, I can't play golf. Then I've got Nathan on the call. However, he sees it differently. He says, I can stay indoors and I can read a book. So now I've got an ambiguity. When AI asks that question or a question, there's like 2 versions coming out, because Nathan thinks that way and Nick Smith thinks that way. Another good example, this is actually a real world one. You send a message and you're all emotionally charged and so excited, and the person doesn't reply. So there's two ways to look at that one as well, or there's many ways that I can look at that one. First of all, they probably having a busy day. That's one way of looking at it. Or I can say, they don't want to reply because they don't like me. Ambiguity. What Fabric IQ allows us to do, it allows us to take data and take out ambiguity. So there's no blurred lines. There's no understanding. If we say it's a rainy day, we understand what AI is going to give us. And then finally, a very good one, real to us, interpretation. So when I say active clients, right, in the semantic model now, that could mean three different things to three different areas in the company. For marketing, an active client is a guy who clicks on my website. There's an active client. For finance, an active client is they're paying the invoice. That's an active client. And then for business development managers, an active client is part of that sales life cycle. We're in the sales life cycle. We're going to close the deal. What Fabric IQ allows us to do, it allows us to take out or it allows us a clear definition of what an active client is. Now, in terms of a bit of technically, they've moved the semantic model. This is very important to understand. So they've moved the semantic model down into the a trusted data layer for us, where traditionally we would have it here, right? And it's very siloed. It's like for a specific business requirement and a semantic model for analytics. However, now I can push it upstream, and I can place this ontology, this business logic, or this taxonomy across my whole business, so that even if it's Palantir Foundry or Foundry using it, I can provide the right context, because that's what we're trying to achieve, is that it does interpret the data the way that I want it to interpret. The second very important point of what this allows us to do is it gives us a semantic model. So where traditionally you would have your semantic model like this, it's perfect, it's like I showed you now, and it's geared for a certain requirement. I can now have a semantic model that is geared across many of these entities. So I can, for example, let's say I'm driving to the office in Midrand. I've got so many things in my AI brain that I've got to consider. So I've got to consider, is it raining? What time of the day is it? Is there roadworks? Are the traffic lights working? And that's really ontology. That's what I can provide here. I can provide relationships between this data and the way that I drive. If I go to Cape Town, I've got no ontology. I mean, I can't pull data together. I don't know if there's roadworks. I don't know if it's raining in Cape Town. So I'm probably going to struggle in the traffic there. And this is really, if I had to draw an analogy, what Fabric IQ allows us to do. If that does make sense to you guys. And of course, we'll break this out in much more detail. As a final point, before I actually hand over to Foundry, so what it solves for us in a technical way, it solves what we call semantic drift. In other words, if this is the semantic model in Fabric now, which is geared for a particular marketing report, and I've taken it through these medallion structures, then, it's difficult for a guy in sales now to tap into that. So it pulls it back so that I can mash up all the different components. So it eliminates semantic drift. It also powers those AI agents, data agents for analysis and questions, which Nathan will talk about, and operational agents, so in Foundry. So it powers that because I have now a taxonomy or ontology and a lingo that my business understands what context I'm giving you the data. It also unifies analytical, operational, as well as real-time data in one cohort. There's a key word, coherent cohort. In other words, I've got everything that I need in one cohort in order to answer a question. Natural language decisions, of course, it's that as well, but it also allows us governance. It's a very important point I want to leave you on. Purview, we talk about compliancy, we talk about data governance, data quality, lineage, traceability, all the good stuff we do in Fabric already. But in it does allow us to also build that ontology. And I think that's the analogy I can draw. So if you go away, think of that ambiguity, think of understanding, are we, talking the same truth here? Is my understanding of a rainy day your understanding of a rainy day? And that's what Fabric IQ allows us to do. On the 16th, we would break it out in a technical presentation, which is quite amazing, on Fabric IQ. And on that point, I'll hand you back to Gabriel. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Greg. I guess something that a lot of us can relate to, given that we work in organizations, so for instance, the definition of gross profit, or GP. Not only can GP stand for general practitioner, but in the context of gross profit, it's actually got many different meanings depending on the type of organization you deal with. For instance, a retailer would consider GP as the cost of the goods that they're reselling. In a services business such as First Digital, where we don't deal with a physical good with an actual asset value, but we deal with people and their time. So how gross profit, for instance, is calculated in an organization such as First Digital is completely different from how it would be done, for instance, in a retailer or somebody that deals with a commodity type organization. So Greg, thanks. Great analogy with the weather. I hope I supplemented it well with a bit of a GP example there.
Yeah, that's all good. Thank you.
But the point is important. That context is utterly important for an agent to be effective. That's something that might be second nature to an individual that works in the organization, but for an agent, even at PhD level, it might actually mean nothing, and he might apply the wrong definition to the term without this semantic context. Thank you very much, Greg. So finally, Nathan is going to talk to us about the third leg in this trio of IQ capability released by Microsoft, and this one specifically focuses on Foundry IQ. Nathan, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Gabriel. Just waiting for the share to work. So just everyone can see my screen. Just give me a thumbs up.
Yeah, perfect, Nathan. Thank you.
Awesome. Perfect. Great. So welcome, everyone. My name's Nathan Goosen. As Gabriel introduced, I'm the head of the Gen AI team within First Digital. And really, as mentioned, we're going to focus on Foundry IQ. What is it? Why does it matter? And how does it change how we build AI agents within Microsoft Foundry? So I'll be around 12 minutes or so, and then we've got some time for questions at the end. So we all know that agents are capable, but they don't know your business. And this is a challenge that we see with every client. And it's not the AI itself anymore, but rather it's the knowledge that the AI has access to. So agents are technically very capable, but they start from zero every single time. We know that knowledge lives in SharePoint and blob storage and PDFs. There's knowledge on the web. There's knowledge in Fabric. But every agent that you build, each team has to start from scratch and ends up building the same retrieval logic every single time. And traditional search just returns a list. It doesn't reason. And that's the gap that Foundry IQ closes. So what is Foundry IQ? Well, it's Microsoft's answer to that exact problem. Think of it as a managed knowledge layer, a single reusable endpoint that sits on top of Azure AI Search and connects your agents to your organization's data. So instead of each agent figuring out where data lives and how to get to it, you set up Foundry IQ, this knowledge base once, and any agent that you build thereafter can tap into it. And this is made up of three core building blocks. That's being your knowledge base, the knowledge sources that it connects to, and the agentic retrieval engine that does all of this actual reasoning. So as mentioned, it's built on Azure AI Search. It's this unified API, and it's permissions aware with citations at all times. And the nice thing is that it also auto handles chunking, embedding, and all the metadata in the background automatically. So you don't have to build all of that yourself. So from messy question to expert level answer, that's the core goal that we're trying to achieve here. And this is really where it gets quite interesting. So agentic retrieval isn't a single lookup. It's rather a three-stage reasoning process. So the first step is that the LLM breaks the query down into focused subqueries. Then each subquery is routed to the right knowledge source, and all of this is run in parallel. And then lastly, the results are merged, re-ranked semantically, and synthesized into a grounded answer with citations. And if the final pass doesn't have enough context, the engine will go back and search deeper automatically to get those answers. And of course, the output's fully traceable. Every source and step is logged, so you can go and debug it if you need to. So what is the result here? Well, expert level answers in seconds. From sources a human might take an hour to look through manually, you can get that in seconds. So now this brings us to the next section. One question, 4 sources, 1 answer. So let's go through an example to make this concrete. So here you can see a technician query that's messy. It's a stream of consciousness query about a piece of equipment. So equipment P432-CT-L1 light is red. UL 817 standard says to replace. Company policy on filing ticket 4324. I mean, if you're not in the know, that would be quite difficult for a human to answer. But that single question actually touches 4 different knowledge sources. An equipment registry, so equipment P4324, markdown docs in OneLake, public electricity safety standards on the web, so UL 817 is a public safety standard, and company policy in PDF in SharePoint, so filing ticket 4324. So Foundry IQ takes this question, identifies all 4 of these different sources automatically, queries all of them in parallel, and returns one cited answer. Without this technician might spend an hour or more looking through different systems to try and find an answer to this question. So this brings us to the core value proposition of Foundry. Connect once, any agent queries it. So it's broadly broken down into 2 different types of knowledge sources. Index sources ingest your data into a search index. So this could be from Azure Blob Storage, SharePoint, OneLake, and your existing indexes. Chunking is automatically handled, same with vectorization and your metadata, and they refresh on a schedule. So once every 15 minutes, once every hour, once a day, that sort of thing. And then you've got your remote sources. They don't ingest anything, rather you query them because they're an external system. You query them live at retrieval time. So that could be SharePoint via Copilot Retrieval API or the public web via Bing grounding. So all queries respect Microsoft Entra permissions and purview labels. So even though this is all set up, it's not bypassing any existing governance that's in place, which is amazing because now it means that you can build one agent and the answer will be slightly different depending on who's using it, because some people might have access to information that other people in your organization don't. So it's context aware built in. Now, this is quite a powerful metric. So 30%, 36%, that's the increase in response quality versus traditional one-shot RAG when using Foundry IQ. So this is why Foundry IQ changes how we build agents. But this is broken down into a little bit more detail. So let's dig into that. So there's 6 main benefits, but the common thread is less repeated work. It makes building agents easier. So you set up a knowledge base once and any agent can reuse it. Security is enforced at query time and it's not something that you bolt on later. Knowledge stays current automatically, and Microsoft's own benchmarks, as mentioned earlier, show a 36% improvement in response quality over traditional one-shot RAG, and RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. And that's quite important and worth pausing on. 36% is not a marginal improvement. It's quite substantial. If you had to take that across, 10 agents, 20 agents, 50 agents, that's a huge, huge time saving. So how do you actually get started? Well, I'll give you a little taster for what will come in our deep dive session, but essentially there's 5 steps to go from nothing to a knowledge-powered agent using Foundry IQ. So first, you just need to sign into ai.azure.com and create an Azure AI search service that supports agentic retrieval. Then you can create a knowledge base with your chosen sources, and then you can connect it to an agent via an MCP endpoint, and then you can test it in the playground. And for anyone who would like to go hands-on after today's session, if you just go into Microsoft Learn and search agentic retrieval pipeline tutorial, then there's a tutorial right there. There's also a link on screen. Or if you'd like us to help you with this, just get in touch and we're be happy to discuss what this means for your business and how to set it up. So what does this all mean? Well, it all boils down to stop building, start scaling. So that's the core message. The time that your team spend rebuilding the same RAG logic can rather be redirected to building more agents, smarter agents, faster. Security and permissions are built in, it's not an afterthought, and knowledge stays current without manual work. And that's how you get that 36% better answers backed by Microsoft's benchmarks. And this is the shift from AI as a proof of concept to AI that actually compounds value across your organization. Well, I said I was going to be about 12 minutes, and that was a lie because I'm actually done a few minutes early. But that's the session. So if you'd like to explore how Foundry IQ fits into your environment, whether that's a greenfield agent or layering it into something that you already have, please reach out to us directly, and we look forward to seeing you at the Foundry IQ deep dive later next month. Gabriel, hand back to you.
Thank you, Nathan. Very insightful. I feel for Nathan and his team. They very often torn when we speak to our customers between, validating a useful agentic use case with, real return on investment. And almost in every session, we talk about document chunking, RAG strategy, and very low-level plumbing that sits behind these agents that Nathan and his team built. So for us, not only Foundry IQ, but Fabric IQ and Work IQ really fills a void between where the capabilities of our models sit these days and the usefulness and the effectiveness of building agentic systems in our organizations using these frontier models and this bleeding gap between true semantic business rich context that these agents inevitably need access to. And sometimes the joke that we share is that if a PhD graduate joins your organization and you give him a PDF to read, maybe it's a bunch of financial statements, you don't really have to give him a lot of context about how to read that PDF document and when he's looking at a table or when he's potentially looking at a piece of text that spans multiple pages inside a PDF document. Yet, this is a problem that we deal with agentic systems every single day. Something as simple as the human layout of a PDF and how it trips up an agentic system. So we're quite excited about this area that Microsoft has addressed. We believe there's a growing gap of plumbing that needs to fill this void in order to supplement our business context so that our agents are as effective as possible. So just as a reminder, today's session was really just an overview of the 3 IQs. On the 9th, we'll dive into Work IQ and Agent 365. On the 16th, we'll dive into Fabric IQ. And then on the 23rd, we'll finish off again with Nathan around Foundry IQ. Everybody that attended today's session will be sent the details and the registration link to these subsequent webinars. If you don't receive it, please reach out to your First Technology account manager or account representative, and we'll make sure that detail finds its way over to you. Great. Just going to allow a few seconds for questions. One that's come up in a direct message to myself is around pricing. Chris, I don't know if there's any information yet around the pricing of Work IQ and Agent 365 that you might want to share, if you're willing to put your ear on the block there.
No, not yet, Gabriel. As I said, it is currently in preview mode. Work IQ's functionality will be automatically included in Copilot Studio and Copilot for M365, so that is no additional cost. You just need to be on that licensing tier. As for Agent 365, I cannot answer that question at this point in time. Okay,
great. And then another question here, Greg, I think you're probably the best one to answer that one. Data sources. Do my whole data estate need to be on Fabric in order to benefit from Fabric IQ, or does Fabric IQ fit into the ability of Fabric in general to connect to third-party and external data sources? I don't know if you want to shed a little bit of light on that. Sorry, Greg, just your mute button there.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you very much. Now I've already answered the question. No, I agree. 100% correct, Gabriel. The status quo is maintained in terms of those 200 connectors. Because remember, this is a semantic model lying on top of your warehouses or your lakehouse. So you can connect directly to those sources to bring it in, to place it into this conceptual semantic model. So nothing changes. Yeah. You'll actually see it in the demo. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then I've got just one last technical question here. Nathan, you're probably best to answer that. If I wanted to build a agentic system that doesn't run on Azure, or maybe for some reason it's on premise, is it possible to tap into Foundry IQ, from a third-party system? So not only the source of the data, but also who consumes that knowledge basis?
100%. So you can connect Foundry IQ not only to your data, living in your Microsoft environment, but also external data sources as well. And you can have your main agentic system be completely separate from your knowledge layer in Foundry IQ. So that's the beauty of it, is that it's flexible enough that you can pull external data sources and Foundry IQ data sources all into your agentic system, whether that's in Foundry or otherwise, and use it.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Okay, I think we've covered about all the questions that was posted to us either prior to the session or during the session. So I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you again. Oh, Greg, you've got a last comment there.
Yes, sorry. I just want to circle back to the question asked about licensing. So according to documentation, it's absorbed within that Fabric capacity units. There's no additional cost or fee for Fabric IQ. It's part of your capacity units license. So.
Okay, great. That's a really good indication. We know Fabric is priced typically based on a capacity or capacity level. So it's great to see that capability is just added to that existing cost to a customer, depending on what capacity they've invested in Fabric. Thank you for clarifying that. Great, guys. Thank you so much for your time. We're just about on time, so thank you very much for the session. Please be on the lookout for the follow-up email in order to register for our subsequent sessions for this webinar series called Raw IQ. Thank you very much. And again, also thank you, Chris, Greg, and Nathan for your input today. Have a great day.
Same to you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Cheers. Bye.